Okay, we move on to lighting and materials. So if you turn on Eevee, you can see that this looks slightly shitty. Of course, it still looks like the station before, with all the lights turned on. It kind of looks interesting, as if like the earthquake just happened, for example. But we wanna change it up a little bit. So let's first maybe turn the HDR way down. I also want to probably get rid of these lights here. I'll delete that, delete hierarchy, get rid of those. I'll delete the things I don't need. I have actually a fog in here with a fog volume. I probably want to punch that up a bit, because now's the time for moody, foggy stuff. Okay, this is cool. This is getting somewhere. So I want to actually turn, I mean, all these lights here, they should actually be turned off. Because why would those lights work? Take the emission out of those. Shaders. Why is the emission here still on? Maybe it's a different material. Okay, weird. Okay, so we have those lights turned off now. It's still too bright. Maybe we want to turn the HDRI is still useful for reflections, but I think this one makes a whole lot more sense, even though you can't see much now. The train lights are still on, which is slightly disturbing with the people there. But let's turn the emission off. Okay, and now we have pretty much a completely dark scene. You can still see there's some... Okay, get rid of that one. The sign, I'm sure, is going to be useful. Okay, things are chugging a little bit because of the screen recording. And of course all the textures in here. Let me see if there's anything else we can delete. Probably not for now. But now we need to get some sort of light in here. And we can start very simply with, sorry, it's chugging a lot, I don't know why. We can start simply with what did I press? Okay, not useful. Let's start with an area light to just get like a general light in here and see how that will interact with the fog and everything. So we have that here. Now we can switch into Eevee. Have I been saying cycles? Sorry, I meant Eevee. But we can't see much. And I really don't know why it's chugging a lot. Let's dial up the power. Okay, something is happening. That looks good. I want to make the all over mood kind of bluish, maybe a bit purple. Oh well, okay. Let's find some materials that are suitable. Here, of course, I have already a lot of materials that would help me with this stuff. And I guess you guys following along with this as well, or you destroy your own scenes, and please make use of whatever you already have, right? No need to like go crazy and do new things. We want to probably go into the ambient occlusion and dial up the distance a bit to have proper ambient occlusion. The dark areas between all the crevices here. We want to go to our area light and make sure we have contact shadows enabled. So this is already looking okay. Maybe I want to have the light maybe be a bit more subtle. It should just be a light that kind of like mysteriously bounces around, and it's just kind of like a fill light rather than the main light that should describe everything. Because for that, like, this is pretty okay. Like, this is just a bit in the back. Look, maybe we want to take this guy, duplicate it, Shift D, and bring it in from the other side to kind of no, not like that. GZ, okay. Let's see what that does. Of course, way too much. It's a bit too thick. We can also, what we can do is, I just want to add a bit of bounce from the back. Maybe we can take our let's see if we have some control over the volumetrics. I want them to start a bit further away from the camera and not necessarily engulf our guy, so we can have it start a bit further back. Let me go to the second area light again and bump up maybe a bit more the power. Yeah, okay, now we're getting a nice highlight here. It kind of helps us separate the objects a bit better. So, and to push my accents, I want to add a spotlight and crank it up. Okay, cool. I crank it up mainly because of the visibility for now. I will make it more subtle. Now we have our shortcuts to move this light around and to really work with it. So we'll push it a bit back. You can see we want to probably make it, depending on what kind of light you want it to be, you can have it, bloody hell. You can have it to be harsher. You can really see the edge here, or you can blend it a bit more, and you have it really like a soft light that you don't really know anymore exactly like where is it exactly coming from. You want to rotate it, maybe move it to the side, move it a bit back. And we want to just use that light for us to highlight our main source, our main focal point here. We can make it a bit stronger. And I usually would use a variety of these to highlight all sorts of different things. Let's move it. You can move it here, move it down, rotate it, and you can place the source of it behind a pillar, or you can place the source of it behind outside of the frame. You can spread it a lot wider here, or you can make it a bit narrower. The main thing is to figure out ways how the light looks natural in the scene. So maybe it coming from there doesn't make much sense. So basically I want to pop the guy out from the background. or maybe even like throw a light on him. So you have like a bit of a horror scenario here. That looks pretty cool. So you can also add one here. We probably add one there. Is that even the light? I think that's the wrong one. We rotate it in Y. We bring it down. We can make this a lot bigger. For the sake of this demonstration, we can have all of these coming from the same direction or just from the top. It takes a bit of fiddling around here. This is a pretty interesting light coming from the top. Maybe it's too strong. Oh, 20, no, 20 is not good. 200. Maybe it needs it's a bit too warm somehow. I need to make it a bit more bluish. Maybe this one as well. And then what we can play with is the overall balance between, the balance between the fog strength and the strength of the lights. So if you want to have like a thicker fog, that's cool. But then at the same time, we need to really bump up our light source. Okay, maybe not that much. But now you can see that we can't really see our focal point anymore. So now that we have bumped up this light here, you see that the cone here is a lot more pronounced of the light, and we might not necessarily want that. So it depends on really what kind of scenario you like. Another thing we can do, and that is very interesting, is that we can add a box, a cube, and then we add a new material, and for that one we add an emission into the volume and make it kind of similar to the color we want, and we make it really low in strength, and then we push it back, and we kind of use it as we can have it set in the distance, and so instead of the distance being dark, we need to bump it up now. Instead of the distance being like fairly dark, we can have the distance be a bit brighter in case there's a big light source in the back. I need to play with the placement. You can see how it looks like right now, and here's that big cube. But you see through the fog, there's not all that much left of it. Another thing, maybe the fog is too strong, and so we can play around with that. That was not what I wanted. Okay. So you see we have that in the distance. What another thing we can do, which is pretty cool, is if we can add a image as a plane. We want to go into the, let's say we want to add, let's add something like this. We don't want an alpha, we want an emission. Whoa, what happened here? So we have that one here. And we can actually, I mean, it doesn't make much sense right now, but maybe the image is also not the best. We don't have to use it as is. We can use it stretched in whatever capacity you can pop something like this in. You can also pop different images in that might work well as the kind of image to give you some highlights. It could be also cool with images that are just a bit closer to the kind of shapes and color tones are that you're trying to achieve here, rather than just images of lights itself. So if you have like some moody shots of some moody photographs of this kind of, not a destroyed station of course, but something at night with like blue highlights and some edgier shapes, that I think would work pretty well for these kind of scenes. You can try play around a bit. It doesn't matter what it was before. But let's turn this guy off. It could be whatever it is, whatever you want to do in the background, and then you can later on like paint it out. We can bump up the fog a little bit again, so everything in the background is kind of coming a bit together better. Maybe I want to turn our main spotlight down a little bit. 10,000 is maybe a tad too much. But then again, what if we make it a bit smaller? Yeah, that's okay. So we can kind of see onto here. Let's see if we can. What if I plug the thing again into the emission here? No, that doesn't do anything. So here we can play with some of the. Let's assign maybe a different material. Maybe we have I think we have a concrete material already set up. It's a bit darker. Yeah, that looks good. So it's a bit darker overall, and it has it's like metal bits sticking out on top. That looks cool. And then from here on out, I have kind of like the mood established, and kind of have my bits and pieces that I like to have here. And now it really comes down to fleshing out the scenes with the camera angles that I want, and also addressing certain things that I think will be useful to address in 3D, like these kind of gaps in here that are not that nice because they have too much contrast here at the edges of the image. I want to kind of close these off, and really, so when we come back to the cinematic aspect of this, I think one of the main things here is that we have we kind of treat this as a movie set, whereas the previous scenario that we did in realistic set design was more like building the real thing and learning from that. I think in here it really comes down to learning about that. Just like on a movie set, you're trying to imitate and improve reality so it looks good in the frames that you're trying to create. So we're trying to kind of imagine what really would, like what would we see when we break down this kind of station, when we destroy it. And I think in that sense it helps if you have built a proper station and then taking it apart and kind of imagining how that will work. You're imagining the bits and pieces from the reference that you think would be there, and you build them out. But then let's not like get tempted by, again, rebuilding reality, but instead trying to distort and place our objects in a way that it would allow us to get cool looking frames, place these pieces in angles that look interesting, that give us a rhythm of light to dark to light to dark, to make an interesting image, to learn from the images that you have collected from ShotDeck or somewhere else, cinematic frames from movies, that help you understand what makes an image interesting and cinematic. And of course, that has not only to do with how you dress up your set, but of course also has to do with how you light your set. And in that sense, the main things to focus on is that you use the light to sculpt your environment, to help separate objects from each other, to help pop our main guy off the background, to use things like atmosphere, to create a distance and then light it accordingly with hiding these lights, just like in a movie set, above the ceiling, outside of the frame, behind other objects, to create these layers that then can really guide your viewer into the scene. So you see like how very quickly here we have established the depth with these pillars that are not only geometry but also lit properly, and then we have these patches of light that allow our eyes to kind of like jump around. We have this kind of as the focal point, and we have a light, of course, directly pointed at it. We have, coincidentally or not, this as kind of like a colorful spot with the green here, right? I mean, there can also be other things, right? That can be like brighter lights, that can be, I don't know, other people's silhouettes that we can focus on, and all sorts of stuff, right? And we need to take care that even though this works fairly well, we have other spots here, like this kind of spot here, this kind of spot here, with sharp edges and high contrast that are kind of destroying our attempt to guide the eye here, and look at this first and look at this guy maybe second, right? So we need to make sure that we add some blockers here and here to get these spots out of there, and to really have 100% control over and take control over what we're trying to build. So once we have frames that we're happy with, the usual thing, of course, we do on a technical side to get these out is that we hit F12, we render this out in the resolution that we have specified in our settings. So let's give this a short second just to go through it again for people who might have missed how to do it. And even Eevee takes a second to render this out. Okay, cool, we have this, we save it as an image. We also can go here into the layer and say depth. No, that doesn't work. We'll do that in a second. Sorry about that. So we'll save this one out. We want to save our ID pass. We go into the regular viewport again, click the arrow, click flat, random, get rid of the outline, get rid of overlays, and say view viewport render image, save this image out as our ID pass to be able to easily select objects. We then revert back to our regular view. Here in the settings, you can set the resolution that you want to have. And what I did for this scene as well is that not only did I use Eevee, I also used cycles on top of that. With cycles, I have the option to add mist and to add denoising data, which is something you definitely want to do for these moody scenes with lots of volumetrics in it. So once we have that, we want to go into the compositor. If this doesn't show up, click use nodes. We search for the denoise function, add the noisy image into the image, denoising normal into the normal, denoising albedo into the albedo, and bring that into our composite node. Okay, let's go back to our layout. We have that, and then usually I would start a render. That will take a second here. So here it is. The image rendered in cycles looks pretty good actually. I had to bump down the density for the volume, for the fog volume, to get it a bit lighter. With the same settings as in Eevee, it was just too dark. So it looks pretty good as well. I want to save that as well, so I'll do that. Please note that it's here on composite, which means it has gone through the compositor as well, and it has been denoised. I can click here and say view layer to see the noisy image. So you can see that's how it looked before. And actually the denoiser did a very good job with cleaning up this image. So that's good. I'm going to save that noisy image out as well for me. I also go into here combined. It says I click on mist, so I get the Z depth pass. I save that out as well. That's pretty much all I need for this. Sometimes the grain pass the noisy pass can be quite nice because it introduces a bit of graininess. We can also add that later in post-production, but sometimes you get some nice artifacts that you otherwise would not get. So I have this image here now. I can save that out. And I can also go through the entire process of saving out all the other files. And then the next thing that we're going to do is composite this together in Photoshop. I'm going to, of course, show the version I prepared before, where I spent a lot more time on building out the environment with different shots, but the process was exactly 100% the same. The only difference is, of course, the time spent on it and the care of placing all the objects, etc., which you also should do. Okay, let's go to Photoshop.